Hey folks, Stein North here. Well, we're going to do a navigation video today out here at base camp. As you can see, I'm sitting in my bushcraft chair I made with a pair of pants. Really like it. Went out to the pond and got it from that campsite, brought it in here to base camp to use. I'm enjoying it. We're going to jump right into this. I got to do this as a two-part video, and I really hope you folks will go to part two so that you get the whole story, that you hear the whole thing out. Now, there may be some people out there that are going to comment or challenge me and say, well, you know, you're just not right. And for me, personally, it's what I believe. It's what I've looked at, what I've researched, what I've practiced, actually put into practice. And that's what I'm sharing with you. I'm not saying I'm the last authority on this issue, but all I would like people to do is proceed with caution, educate yourselves, get as much knowledge as possible, and come to your own conclusions. So okay, let's move along with this. It's a navigation video, and it's about pacing, doing pace counts. You can do pace counts in conjunction with a compass. You can do pace counts in conjunction with a map. But certain conditions apply no matter what. Now, one issue with pacing beads, which I have right here, is that very ingenious. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out pacing beads. Now you're going to hear people say out there say, "Oh, well, these originated in the continental, in North America. That the pioneers 250 years ago came up with this to map out the country and where they were going and stuff." That's a myth. Did they use them? Yes, that's true. They didn't come up with it. The fact that they did not, this idea did not originate from them. Then you have some that say, "Oh, well, no, they learned it from the Native Americans here in North America." That's a myth also. Now, the Native Americans may have, in their own time, in their own way, came up with the method, just like the pioneers may have, but that's not the origin of it. Now, historically, there's evidence of pacing beads being used in Egypt, ancient Egypt, for setting out and marking cities, temples, and pyramids. There's historic evidence that certain sections of the Great Wall of China, they used pacing beads to determine the length of a section of wall that they were building that a certain area was responsible for, and to basically measure the end product. So they go way back, thousands of years. But we're talking about today, and how are you going to apply them today? I don't care where they come from. This set came out of my pocket. That's where they come from. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, just so everybody knows, I have pacing beads. I got a few sets. But I'm not saying pacing beads are bad. I'm saying that they do have their purpose, their use. You do, however, need to know what they're good for and their limitations. And there's a lot of limitations to these that people don't like to, for some reason, don't like to disclose when they're doing instructional videos about these. Okay, this is how they work. This set has 5 beads at the top. It's got 9 beads at the bottom. You're going to determine how many paces you take in 100 yards. So you will know how many paces you have to walk to hit 100 yards. And when you hit 100 yards, you're going to pull 1 bead down. Okay? That's 100 yards. Now, after you've hiked 900 yards, you hike one more 100 yards, and you pull one of those down. Oops, my beads are getting loose. This has been used a lot. Um, that bead down and these 9 up represents 1,000 yards, because each one of these was 100. Pulled down 9, then you pulled that one down, we'll pull the 9 up, 1,000 yards. Now if you pull 3 of those down, well, see, my beads are loose on this. I gotta do something about that. New cord is what they need. 1 bead down, these 3, 1,300 yards. You get the point, okay? So that's how they work. Now, how do you know when you've reached 100 yards? Well, what you got to do is you got to mark out 100 yards. And what you do, and it's in lots of videos, they demonstrate it. You take a piece of flat ground and you run a tape out 300 feet, 100 yards. And then you walk that. And what you do is you stand with your feet together at the starting point, lead off with your left foot, then take a step with your right. When your right foot touches the ground, that's 1. Left foot, right foot touches the ground the second time, that's 2. So, every time your right foot hits the ground, that's a pace. You're not counting both feet, you're only counting one side. Okay? So you walk that, and let's say it comes out to 65 paces. So then you know if you're walking on flat ground with nothing except your pace beads, and you walk 65 paces, you can move a bead down, and that's 100 yards. Okay? Well, the world's not flat. Columbus could tell you that. It goes up and down and all around, you know. So now you do the same thing. You find a hill. It doesn't have to be a super steep hill, but something that represents the kind of terrain you're going to be in, the hilliness of the terrain you're going to be in. And you mark off 100 yards, 300 feet, up a grade. Now you do the same thing. But no, okay, I have to back up. You did that on flat ground. Now you have to put all your gear on that you're going to go hiking with, right? And you're going to do it again and get that pace count. Because it's going to change with all that weight on it. You're going to probably end up with a lot more paces. So let's say it was 65 without any gear. You put all your gear on and you got out there and it was 75 paces. You want the average of those two. So you would average those two down. So let's say it's 7. Let's say your average was 70 on flat ground. Now you do the same thing on an uphill incline. Without a pack and with a pack. Now you average those two. Now you turn around and you do it downhill. And you do the same thing. And you average those two. Now you got 3 averages. Flat ground, uphill, downhill. Now you take those 3 averages and average those together. And let's say it comes out to 74 paces per 100 yards. So every time you do 74 paces, you can move one down. That's 100 yards. Okay. You've established your pace count. Okay. Now, that's what they tell you. Now you're ready to go. You can put your pack on and you can start using your pace count beads to start counting your paces through wherever you're going. Well, that's not accurate in most scenarios. It is if you're going to walk down a nice straight path. Well, it can even be a weavy path. But it has to be smooth surfaced, and it has to go flat, uphill, and downhill 30% of the time, 33 1/3% of the time for each, for you to even come close to your average pace count that you calculated. If you're walking through the heart of the woods and you got to walk around deadfall trees, you got to walk way around them. You got to walk around a pond. You got to walk around a big boulder. You got to stop and climb over things. You got to take short steps, long steps. You get into a muddy area and you're kind of running and leaping through it. All of those variables are throwing your pace count off. I think you can see what I'm getting at here. People instruct other people to go out there and estimate their pace count. And they say to do it in, the same type of hilliness and flat ground, come up with these averages. Unless you do it in the exact terrain you're going to be in, your pace count is not going to even be close to accurate. Now, people are going to argue with me and say, yes, it is, yes, it is. Now, I've experimented with this along with others as group experiments. You send one person out, and they'll do their pace counts. And you have to have a good general knowledge of your north, south, east, and west. If you don't have a compass, you got to have a good general knowledge of where you're at. Now, I know the sun's right over here, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's south. Yeah, that'd be south right over there. West is over here. So, I have a good general idea where north, south, east, and west are, okay? So you need to know that. You got to have a notebook with you, and you got to keep a lot of notes. So what we would do in our experiment is you send a person out, and what they're going to do is they're going to, using pace counting, they're going to establish a route that varies. It'll go to a point, turn, it'll go to another point, turn, and then they'll do that. They'll make 5 checkpoints, and they'll put a blaze, a little surveyor's tape. Boom. Nice and bright orange. You should be able to see that just fine. Now they come back, and usually you do this exercise with 4 people, and you got the other 3 people. That person takes their notebook, gives it to the first person. They take off based on that notebook, and they follow the same pace count and the notes in that notebook. And they record in their own notebook how close they came to the blazes that were left by the first person. And then when they get back, which is the real interesting part, when they get back, when they make their last count, that's where they mark, where they blaze. And they record it. And then we record the distance between their blaze and the starting point so that we know how far off they were because of the variances in the terrain they were walking. Okay, I've got to jump over to part number 2, and I'm going to finish this story out for you in this description of some of the myths that go with these beads. So thanks for watching, and please watch part 2. Please watch part 2. I really would like to see you get this information. Okay? We'll see you in part 2, folks.